Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. For me, it's Monday. For you, it's Tuesday. For another day, it's whatever day it is. But it's going to be a great day as we have an opportunity to share with you about a process, a proposal, maybe even a new policy. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And thanks to Mr. OC for sitting in the chair. He did the morning show and he came back for the afternoon. Another person that had more fun than him was Susan. But we'll tell you about that another time when she's singing karaoke somewhere. Didn't think people knew. 949-8037, 1-800-534-TALK. As we invite you to be a part of our discussion, we welcome once again Mr. Ori Marin to the studio. We're talking about a process that,
thank you so very much.
We want you to relay, continue to enlighten, inform, engage, and hopefully include and involve our people as we talk about things as they unfold. So, I trust the week thus far has been productive. To my good friend, welcome, sir, welcome.
Well, once again, I want to thank you, Dwayne, and I want to thank Radio Cayman for having me on. I'm very grateful. I'm also very cognizant of the responsibility that sensitive topics in a healthy democracy, it's very important that we abide by code of ethics. I take it even a step further, that we need to abide by our moral compass and where that leads us. All of sin falling short of glory of God, but we're going to do our best to try to make this an enriching and responsible conversation today.
Well, I appreciate that. I think this is where the test of any democracy is when people can be a voice, not a lone voice crying in the wilderness, but a lone voice beating a particular drum. Maybe just because there's a chorus in unison of a large choir, doesn't mean that in itself is the right thing to do. But where we fail is sometimes denying that voice to that particular topic that sometimes is, as you said, a bit sensitive. So what is our topic for today as we continue from 2 weeks prior?
Well, thank you very much, Dwayne. And I guess, for choice of better words, perhaps, last time there was a lot of prerequisites and aspects that we kind of had building up. Although it's very important on some of these very important topics to get it right. What I'm going to do today is hopefully... Please, everybody, don't crucify me for this one. I'll go out on a limb and say that sometimes us lawyers can be a bit boring. So I'm going to try to deal with the topic in a way that hopefully engages the audience a bit more and brings us to life. And we have a little fun with it as well, whilst at the same time choosing our words wisely.
And words sometimes we get into semantics, right? But we talk about, when it comes to cannabis, ganja, marijuana, even that in itself has particular connotations. And then decriminalizing versus legalizing. So maybe
could I actually just say something really quickly?
I was going to ask you.
You said something. I can't remember the way you said it last time, but I thought it was beautiful the way that you differentiated between. I think you used ganja, marijuana, and cannabis. I thought that was quite significant observation because it depending upon what jurisdiction you're in, the language might be North America might use marijuana more. In Cayman, every time you hear ganja, that's used in a criminal context. In the Cayman Islands, when you hear cannabis or cannabis attached to the word, well, at least certainly cannabis extracts and tinctures of cannabis right now, that's in the lawfully authorized context.
Medicinal almost.
Yeah, and also the reason it's a good word to get the phraseology correctly. It's a genus, species, etc. You learn in school in different classes. Well, we're talking about the genus cannabis. So it's content specific to what we're talking about. We could get a bit more technical and say, well, Delta 8 is hemp versus Delta 9 is cannabis, sativa, indica, or reticulus, but I don't think we need to go that.
At some point, maybe we should, because that's the level of education relative to its application.
Actually, I think one of the failures, by the way, that I put on myself is not perhaps mentioning a few things that it's not just me, it's not just Prentice and others, but we have some very committed, dare I say, at least my words, praising them, I'm leaving myself out of the equation, professional stakeholders in the industry.
Yeah.
And, I should say up front, Dr. Lockhart has been a source of inspiration, a rich source of knowledge, and he's helped guide me when I've got lost in the thicket of some of the most difficult aspects for the medical cannabis industry and decriminalization.
And this is it, because... Sorry, go ahead.
One last thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Dr. Mark Lockhart has been more than gracious to having committed to help educate the public from the perspective of a medical doctor or health practitioner. So I think that's very important, and I just want to thank him so very much. Well,
I'm glad you acknowledge that too, because I think when we look at sometimes the use of certain things, whether they're prescribed, whether we in the Caribbean, but particularly the Cayman context, the bush medicines, as it were, your grandmother, you might say to you, oh, your stomach is a little unsettled, go and at time you may pick up some bush. If you're smart enough to pay attention, she'll teach you, and then you come in and you know how to prepare that, and that'll settle your stomach. Or it could be
very true, actually.
A burn. To see some things. Miss Reed recently was a guest with Ray and myself, and to see the intellect and the interest of this young lady, to now taking what we've affectionately called bush medicine and bringing it into the scientific realm with a discussion that is not just informative and enlightening, but it's one that, to me, is significant if we're going to look at the health and well-being of people.
Absolutely.
So similarly with cannabis, and maybe to try to get away from some of the negative connotations, but as you shared at the outset, do so responsibly and be guided morally. Now, legalizing...
Could I actually just interject, because I think that's really an interesting point that you touched on right there that I'd like to piggyback.
Yeah.
You have so much, you and also the callers last time, I said to myself, I went back and listened and said I'm going to try to touch on some of the things I wish I had time to say, because
today's the day, man.
So enriching, and I think it's important we be responsive to questions and comments that are made, because this is by the people, for the people. This is not about me, this is about we. So I just want to make that clear, and even more so in all of this, just ask that God just be given all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory for everything that can be done in a positive manner to enlighten people and to help, not hurt society.
All right, man.
What I'd like to do actually is touch on the right to health and I'd like to talk about what the World Health Organization, how they define health. I think that's quite enlightening. It throws up quite a bit, and it is right. Excuse me.
So we're talking to our Mariner Fourth, and we referenced the petition, we referenced the impetus for it, and the like. And while you do that, or let's pause quickly, take a break. We'll come back. Of course, the phone line's open, but the discussion is intended to inform and educate, involve, and include. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
You can now register to receive a securely verified digital copy of your COVID-19 vaccination status with QR code through the MyHSA patient portal. Sign up is available at all HSA locations and at various sites throughout the community. To register, all you need is your photo ID showing date of birth and a valid email address. Visit hsa.ky and click My HSA Patient Portal for the sign-up schedule and more information.
Did you know our reefs are home to over 45 different kinds of corals and more than 125 different species of fish? Cayman's amazing coral ecosystems provide so many benefits to our lives. But an aggressive coral disease called stony coral tissue loss disease, or Skittle D, is making its way around Grand Cayman and threatening our incredible corals. That's why the Department of Environment's Skittle D response team is hosting Coral Fest at the Grand Caymanian former Holiday Inn in Safe Haven on Saturday, November 6th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Meet the Skittle D scientists and learn what makes Cayman's corals so important to us. Bring the kids for coral games, educational booths, and awesome prizes. Entry is free. Email coral@gov.ky or visit doe.ky for more info.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. As we invite you to be a part of our discussion, so our Mariner Fourth is our guest, and you were just prior to the break going to share the WHO's sort of definition of health. But before we get into it, we're talking about a petition to legalize, decriminalize. Sure.
Yes, sir, indeed. It's essentially twofold. One could elaborate in much more detail, but I brought this is on Just Enrichment by the late great Professor Peter Burks, but I'm going to use Professor Burks' style of trying to explain the situation. In this book, he did something fantastic as a monograph. He started with a core case that holds good, but as you apply fact scenarios, different things might be the case, but a core principle holds good, which in that is that enrichment is unjust in the law of unjust enrichment. when it's equivalent to any variation of a mistaken payment and of a non-existent debt not due. That to lawyers, they'll know where I'm going, but I do want to try to integrate this in and make it also something that's enriching, not just for lawyers, not just for everyone trying to be serious, but also for the general public to see that we can take sensitive things and have some fun with them, but also be educational.
Well, just to even put it in context, and I certainly want you to reference, because we're talking about health and welfare, but in the election that just concluded, a candidate from the back, Mr. Elvis McKeever, had as his platform, and we're seeing increasingly over the last decade and a bit across the globe, notable names from former U.S. Secretaries of State to Secretary Generals of the UN, other people, not because of their titles or their positions that they are any more than what they are, but if we were to look at it from that perspective, there's been a call for a discussion to look at this thing. I would imagine, I'll be corrected by you, even in our own jurisdiction, we've done a number of things relative to expunging certain offences from people's criminal records. We've looked at certain things. Now, at some point, I may want to ask you about, whether it's today or another time, this whole use of how we offer up cautions, as it were, to certain offences, a practice that I think is something of a use and potential from other of your colleagues in the legal profession, potential for abuse in other jurisdictions. But in this case, you're asking for a petition. You sent communication to the sitting government relative to amending the misuse of drugs law.
That is correct. So what I did, Dwayne, is by the way, if I may call you Dwayne,
of course,
first name basis.
Of course.
But I have the utmost respect to me,
I'm
sir,
just
Mr.
me.
Dwayne.
No, man, I'm just me.
Perhaps one of the interesting things we could come back to and touch on this, but keeping the World Health Organization's definition of health, quote unquote health, I think that's a very important starting point to have an idea of what we're looking at here. So the World Health Organization's definition of health, which is broad in quote unquote health, which is broad in scope, is quote a state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I think that's very important because a lot of the time we focus on the physical ailments. In relation to cannabis products, medical cannabis products, and medical cannabis used for medical and therapeutic purposes and uses as prescribed by a medical doctor. That's very important. But people also self-medicate, people that don't even realize that they're doing it, and then they say, oh, well, I can't get to bed. I've never been able to get to bed my whole life. But they can have a little bit of some cannabis in whatever administrative form of administration they use, because there's different ones. They get benefit from it, and it's not just the physical health as well, too. It's spiritual, mental well-being. So mental health is a big thing, and when we have these stress tests on society, the global worldwide pandemic, we're seeing our challenges. What I would want to also just do right now, I just feel led to, won't take long, but we're all going through unprecedented times right now. I just want to continue to remind everyone that sometimes I've had to remind myself time and time again that the rough times and the challenges are some of the greatest times if you learn to enjoy the journey. And I have to say, over the last probably 3.5 years, I've been learning to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But I think it's something to persevere through, and that God will bless me for it. Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, you know what?
I'm not a sucker for punishment, but I
might be.
I do think. Well, maybe I am. I do think it's important that we try to do our individual parts to make society better. And I think that on this one, myself and others are on the right side of the law, history and morality. So,
I appreciate that one.
So, one of the other things as well too that I think is quite important to just allude to up front after mentioning what health is, because I want to also, while we talk about decriminalization, I think too much of the time we might lose sight of the fact that there is a medical or therapeutic or a scientific use or function or application that's missing the eye. Sometimes people just think they're just using it because they want to, but if you get down to the core of what their motivation is, you might be finding that things aren't always what they seem, and sometimes helping people tie things together that they themselves might not have recognized is important as well too. But not to be too long-winded, I want to allude also to not just the fact that our Constitution has a right to life, it's absolute right, and the right to not be deprived of life, as well as private life. That's a big one. Privacy of the home, very big one. It was a Section 9 of the our Bill of Rights. But I want to allude to this. Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights recognizes, and I quote, the right of everyone to the highest enjoyment of attainable standard of physical and mental health. And it provides, that's end quote, please, just for clarity. And it also provides that parties to the covenant take steps to, quote, achieve the full realization of this right shall include for those necessary for, end quote, inter alia, the quote, creation of conditions which would assure to all medical service and medical attention in the event of sickness. Now, that's a health focus. But arguably, if anyone has a look at the Crown versus Parker, which I won't go into, it's a Canadian case, other than I want to read something, two paragraphs from it, or just parts of it. That it's. I think this will help to start setting the scene for people, if that's okay.
Yeah. Because we've seen, I mean, well, within the Canadian jurisdiction as part of Commonwealth, some of that whole issue. So it is a global discussion, at least in the Western aspect, in terms of its use and to control its abuse. So, yeah.
Correct. Well, Commonwealth jurisdictions, we have a commonality that one of the ways to reason, if you can't find a precedent or reason by analogy, is we're able to look at persuasive statements of law that happens around the common law world. There's a presumption that nothing ever happens in the common law for the first time. Hope I quoted that right. I think that's the Crown versus Smith a case in Cayman. But want to make a quote from Justice of Appeal Rosenberg. This was Ontario Court of Appeal in the Crown versus Parker. I think it's very important. And I'm quoting. And by the way, for anyone that's I want to read along, it's taken from paragraphs 2 and paragraph 39 of that judgment, but page 5 actually that you have there. So it states, it has been known, and by the way, they use marijuana, but I would prefer that we focus on the word cannabis being the genus of the plant. And anyway, that being said, it has been known for centuries that in addition to its intoxicating or psychoactive effect, marijuana has medicinal value. The active ingredients of marijuana are known as cannabinoids. The cannabinoid that gives marijuana its psychoactive effect is tetrahydrocannabinol, brackets THC, as the abbreviation for it. Moving on. While less is known about other cannabinoids, the scientific evidence is overwhelming that some of them have anti-seizure properties. The most promising of these is cannabidiol, and that's quote-unquote CBD. Smoking marijuana is one way to obtain the benefit of CBD and other cannabinoids with anti-seizure qualities. Consumption of marijuana is relatively harmless compared to the so-called hard drugs, and including tobacco and alcohol, and there is no hard evidence that even long-term use can lead to irreversible physical or psychological damage. Marijuana is not criminogenic, meaning, i.e., there is no causal relationship between marijuana use and criminality, and it does not make people more aggressive or violent. There have been no recorded deaths from consumption of marijuana.
And this is a sitting judge.
Correct, from 2000. Yeah. Some medical practitioners, I would allow them to weigh in on that, but that to me that sums up so much that is very important for
so,
people.
Yeah.
To know.
So this was a Court of Appeal in Ontario, Canada.
Correct.
In a case in 2000.
2000.
All right.
Now the difference with that case is they were focusing on Section 7 to do with right of liberty and the right to liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Their privacy rights sections would actually flow more out of their Section 8, which is against unreasonable entry, search, and seizure functions. Fortunately, I'm going to come back and answer your question, but I'm so tempted. Could we look at the Constitution really quickly?
Yeah.
I think this is something that the way I hope I don't do it the wrong way to explain this, but. After listening to Sir Geoffrey Jowell's comments on different times about Section 9 privacy rights, this is phenomenal because are you there? Section 9?
Yeah, you're quite, yeah.
So you see Section 9 subsection 1?
Private and family life, section.
That the difference is most jurisdictions have either, for choice of better words, and just to make it very quick, they either have subsection 1 or subsection 2 kind of equivalent. We have both. I can't tell, and they both kind of end up supporting the same thing. But subsection 1 says government shall respect every person's private and family life, his or her home, his or her correspondence. Subsection 2 says, except with his or her consent or as permitted under subsection 3, no person shall be subject to the search of his or her person or his or her property or the entry of persons on his or her premises. So that's against kind of like entry, search, and seizure functions. Reason I'm saying that is private life and privacy, the home, are very prominently protected to be respected under subsection 1. However, if you look at subsection 2, that's the right to be left alone, essentially at one's home, provided you're not being a threat to society or anyone or even yourself.
Right. But I mean, and we won't get into the Constitution necessarily.
No. I just highlight that because I think that's the most powerful section that we're dealing with right here.
Right. But even so, though, even in that, that Section 9, subsection 2, as you read, except, with his or her own consent, or as permitted under subsection 3.
Yeah.
And subsection 3 introduces a lot of things, including public health.
That's correct.
So there are a lot of, you're the attorney, but a lot of overriding interests there. I mean, in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, public health, town and country planning, or the development or utilization of any property in such a manner as to promote the public benefit. That subsection 3 in itself could, some would argue, create a greater ability for the government to contravene.
Yeah, that's correct, Dwayne. Technically speaking, but when you reason through it, it becomes less sharp. What it is you are correct. Section 3 allows infringements in exceptional circumstances to fundamental rights and freedoms. There's a difference between an absolute right that you can never infringe, like right to life,
and a conditional right.
But private life, family life, these privacy sections, some others, freedom of conscience, etc. They have their qualified rights, where recurring kind of language is that to the extent that is reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, and it might name some specific things. I think probably the most important one that might be of relevance here would be subsection D, that means to authorize for the purposes of enforcing the judgment or order of a court the search of any person or property by order of a court or the entry on premises by such order, or as you alluded to, interest of defense, public safety, public order, etc. The ones that really come up would be public health to me, public morality perhaps, but I don't think this is an issue of morality if one sees especially the reasoning of the 2018 judgment of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, which we'll touch on. But once again, B as well too, that for the purpose of protecting rights and freedoms of other persons. But if you keep it to personal uses, like say you're doing decriminalization, right? If you keep it to personal uses by adults, such as consumption, possession, and cultivation on private premises. I know the cultivation draws alarm bells. It did with me too. I was perplexed and surprised how some of these things, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I do know, and that still is the case today. So I'm a work in progress as we go along. We're doing this together, but that's gonna be predominantly featured. However, you asked the question, I want to answer it. The petition is pursuant to Section 70. Do we need to take a... No?
Yeah, conversation got interjected with breaks. So
Yeah. No, I just want to be respectful of...
No. I probably should too, but sometimes I wonder. All right, let's pause and take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
All the world's greatest inventions were initially misunderstood.
What?
Except for KFC's Chizza, a pizza made with all chicken and no crust, tomato sauce and pepperoni, topped off with delicious melted cheese. An invention that is understood from the very first bites. Chizza from KFC. No need to explain. You just need to taste it.
Try Chizza at KFC Shedden Road and KFC Baytown today.
During October, the Department of Children and Family Services celebrates Older Persons Month. As part of this year's theme, Digital Equity for All, the DCFS will be offering classes for those over 65 on how to better use their phones. Modern phones can do so much. Learn to take great pictures, connect and stay in touch with your loved ones, and how to take care of your banking and errands. Workshops on these topics are being held throughout the Older Persons Month at the Older Persons Active Aging Centre. Please call 949-0290 to book your spot. That is 949-0290.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And in the studio, our Mary the Fourth joins us as we talk about a petition to. Now, I keep emphasizing
here,
all right, and asking, to decriminalize, and then the difference between that and legalize
there is a
cannabis,
difference.
and we will speak to that. So, as you give us a perspective, looking both at case law across the Commonwealth, including references to some here, and also our Constitution, but share with us.
Well, thank you very much, Dwayne. And just to set the tone, once again, it's quite simple what the petition is. As we've seen in the CPR matter, that Section 70 allows us a direct form of democracy where if 25% of registered voters sign a petition and it's valid, we can trigger a referendum. Now, for referendum is triggered, takes over 50% of the registered voters to vote in favor of it. If that's the case, then Parliament has a constitutional mandate from the people in order to take legislative action or pass legislation or whatever the case may be.
Unlike the U.S., where the courts can decide, here our courts don't have that. They can make a declaration incompatibility with the Constitution.
Well, yeah, no, they can do that as well. That's Section 23, or maybe one might even say more accurately Section 23 tied together with Section 24 and 25, and perhaps for the sake of clarity, it's Section 27.
Okay.
But
right.
I don't want to get in too far into declarations of incompatibility, and I'll tell you why. Because the idea here is really not that we make this a court battle.
Right.
We're trying to make this something by the people, for the people, to not so that the law is not broken. The idea is not to break the law, but change the law. And I have to be quite honest and just put the cards on the table. I chose this subject because it's probably the easiest one to get forward in terms of accuracy and correctness, in terms of reasoning through the different issues, particularly the three international treaties, which are the UN drug conventions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are important because those are international regime that we need to comply with, but they allow us constitutional exceptions or limitations and constitutional principles, which alludes to human rights. So it comes down to the broad robustness and strength based on how your constitution is drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully for us, we have a fantastic constitution. I just marvel at some of the language used, and I can't believe how much thought has gone into this thing. This is a work of art, to tell you the truth. There's improvements that need to be made. And
you're commendable. I have a different view of it, but that's just me.
Well, the next, God willing, if we can, God willing, when this is completed, I would like to do another one that has to do with suggested amendments to the Constitution. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but
should do that,
it's very good. But just needless to say, that to get through what the Section 7 is, it's a petition by the people to trigger a referendum or initiate it by themselves, where you kind of leapfrog over Parliament and leave it in the hands of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the issues are twofold. It's decriminalization of cannabis for personal uses by adult in private, not in public, and it's not children. The second issue deals with broadening medical cannabis legislation, which already exists. Cayman was very smart, actually, to take very narrow, incremental steps. It was very conservative, but at the same time, the Cayman Islands is Jamaica was the first jurisdiction to pass medical cannabis legislation, and I would put in brackets including decriminalization legislation for cannabis. But Cayman just took medical cannabis very narrow. However, they got it right. And a matter of fact, I want to just praise publicly. Parliament, if I'm not mistaken, all voted unanimously on both sides of the aisle. I just want to commend all of them for doing the right thing. They were on the right side of the law, morality and history on that one. By us taking incremental conservative steps in cannabis with respect to cannabis legislation, or I should say medical cannabis legislation, as we start to take more incremental steps, I think it's very important that we use the opportunity to see what happened in other jurisdictions. So far, we did a great job. I really marvel at what Jamaica did, and I want to go back and praise Jamaica and Bermuda for some things that they did as well.
Let's try this caller before we go to the
Sure.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon.
Hey, my friend.
Good afternoon,
What's up, man? How are you today?
I'm all right. Good afternoon to your good guest. Good
afternoon, sir. Thank you. Same to you.
I called just today to offer my support to legalizing the cannabis. I think it's something should happen long time. I thank the two gentlemen, Mr. Your guest and Mr. Brentus Banton, for doing that. I think Cayman needs to follow with the whole world now legalizing the use of cannabis. I think it's that will stop smuggling other stuff, dangerous stuff with ganja when it's coming to Cayman. I think it's very useful to the society. But we need to ask the government if they're going to do this law, that they need also to remove all kinds of, the people have records from before for smoking a spliff of ganja or, because that's preventing people from getting a job, especially the most affected by that is Caymanians, not other nationalities. And I think what your guest and Mr. Brentas doing is a very great thing. I support it 100%, and I'm willing to work with them if they need my help and anything. I mean, what is good for this country, we need to do it because this is needed from long time. It will bring income for the government. Taxpayers will get income from that. I think we get less people who have record and they can get a job. They can, and that will provide more jobs and more money for the economy. I think it is well needed, and I support it very strongly. And I thank your guest for doing this.
All right. Thank you very much for that, sir. And with that in mind...
Thank you so very much, caller.
All right, we just had the news break. When we come back, we can continue. So thanks very much for that call. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. John Lee reports as of 8 a.m. this morning there have been 1,101 PCR tests since yesterday's report. Of these, there are 2 positives in travelers who tested before their exit from quarantine. They remain in isolation until they test negative. There are 90 positive tests from the community, which include 2 children. There were 2 admissions of people positive for SARS-CoV-2 in the last 24 hours, bringing the total admissions to 4. Dr. Lee says these 2 require a supplemental oxygen still this morning, although they are stable. One has been there since early September. The other was admitted for an unrelated matter. In international news, Sudan's coup leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has said the military seized power on Monday to prevent civil war. He added that the deposed prime minister was being kept at the general's house for his own safety and would be allowed home soon. Protests are continuing for a second day in the capital, with roads, bridges and shops closed. Phone and internet links are also disrupted. At least 10 people are reported to have been killed since the unrest began. Queen Elizabeth II will regretfully not attend a reception at next week's key climate conference in Glasgow following advice to rest, Buckingham Palace announced on Tuesday. The announcement that the Queen would skip the planned appearance at the COP26 summit came just hours after she carried out her first official engagements, albeit virtually from Windsor Castle since spending a night in hospital and cancelling a trip to Northern Ireland last week. Those are your latest headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And in the studio, Aria Marion joins us as we're talking about a petition. Now, as the attorney, I would want to say you spearheaded it, but if you wish to take that role, Noreen, in order to get the sitting government to consider, after the requisite number of registered voters have been verified, sort of assess to say, okay, this is what they're looking at. To legalize or decriminalize their personal use for adults in private?
Decriminalize in private for personal use.
But not legalize. I keep asking as I share a few messages from you off here.
If we do a technical reasoning, which I won't go through into right now, but in line with the 1961 UN Drug Convention, when I say UN, United Nations, coupled together with the 88 Convention, technically speaking, we need to stick with decriminalization. However, there is an aspect that relates to a licensing regime where one might choose whether one wants to stick to decriminalization, which is a right to be left alone, versus voluntarily licensing.
So, for my benefit,
where you would be regulated under a license.
If it's not an opportune time to do it now, we can revisit another discussion. And before we go to the call, just for my benefit and to satisfy a number of the messages coming through.
Sure.
Personal, private use only. Legalize versus decriminalize. What's the difference?
So, in terms of decriminalize, what is happening is it's still dealt with as a crime or something that they're not criminally penalizing, like a custodial sentence or a charge.
Yeah.
But you get
a recorded thing in somewhere.
Well, no, you would get like a fine, kind of like a speeding ticket, so it doesn't go on your real record as such. But it's not good
if
to get.
Decriminalized.
Right.
Okay.
So, but that would be for like uses in public and so forth. The core case of it is when someone's at their home. However, I think it's also important to focus on when anything to do with legalization, we should have our primary focus on not just certain exceptions that are available, but the focus of medical and scientific purposes.
No, fair enough.
That's what the Constitution allows us.
So it's not just semantics then when you look at legalizing versus decriminalizing. Those words were not semantics. There's significant difference between the two.
Yes, very, very much so.
So if it was made legal in private use, private consumption, nothing to do with sale, trade, or commercial, other than through licensing, and that person was in public, then if it was legal to use it in private and the person was consuming it in public, it would be illegal to do that in?
Yeah.
Because it would be outside the law?
Yeah, but instead of getting a criminal charge, you would get any one of these or a combination of all. You likely get it seized. You would not get it back, obviously. Be ordered to have substance abuse treatment, education, follow-up for drug abuse. Forget it, when they follow up with them to ensure
the rehab and stuff.
Yes, correct. Treatment, and also the opportunity to be fully educated in all benefits and deficits.
Fair enough. That's a part of this. All right, let's come back to that, but let's take this call and see where it takes us.
Sure.
Welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sermon.
Afternoon, ma'am. How
Good
are you today?
afternoon, caller.
Welcome back and good afternoon to your guest.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm not too bad. I'm not calling to be rude or disrespectful.
No, ma'am. You share your perspective.
But I just want to ask a question. I have to say just how I feel it.
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
When are we going to legalize God in our lives and throughout this whole island? Because, God has given men to go and study for medicine and so forth to heal us. And God is a great healer as well as himself. But,
Amen.
We want everything that the rest of the world has. And I wonder sometimes who are we really pleasing? But I'm not here this for a second one. I'm just asking when are we going to legalize God here in the Cayman Islands? Thank you for listening, and you all have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, caller. Actually, that's actually something very topical, and I would love to be able to put that as a Christian myself. I think it's important to me, and I'm just so proud of our Constitution. Subsection 1 of the Bill of Rights says that the Bill of Rights, freedoms, and responsibilities is a cornerstone of democracy in the Cayman Islands. And then you go to subsection 2A, it says that this part, meaning the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, A, recognizes the distinct history, culture, Christian values and socio-economic framework of the Cayman Islands, and it affirms the rule of law and democratic values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. So we do have the recognition of our Christian values that are actually expressly stated in our Constitution. I think that's important to not lose sight of, as well as our distinct history and culture. With the Christian values, to me, is a recognition expressly of our Christian heritage and Christian values and Christian faith. Now, we also have the opportunity to choose our religious pursuits and freedom of expression and freedom of conscience. But what I would say is this, that as opposed to a secular constitution, I'm very proud as a Christian that our Bill of Rights, it's the cornerstone of democracy in the Cayman Islands, does recognize expressly our Christian values.
It comes in a preamble to Bado.
It's part and parcel of our society, and it's been a source of strength for us, to do great things. We're weak, but God is strong, so we get strength from the good Lord.
So with this, and we see as you emphasize, the medicinal use of it and increasing sort of cause by many leaders, civic, political, ecclesiastical, and the like, relative to the behavior, use, consumption, otherwise of it. Now, in the Cayman context, we have the petition as you shared, and as you take us through not just case law but our Constitution and some of the other persuasive sort of rulings by other Commonwealth jurisdictions. Help us to better understand, because it is an emotive issue. There is some issues of morality from some people's perspective.
Yes, that's
perhaps being ill-informed, perhaps even being of a preconceived notion without fully being aware of even where we stand. But help us, Ori.
Can I just ask really quickly, precisely, would you like me to comment on the medical cannabis side of it? That's more medical.
If you want, yeah. Comment on all, because I think this is a discussion, as you shared, isn't just today or tomorrow. This is going to be ongoing.
Sure.
And at some point, parliamentarians may be asked to weigh in, especially the petition triggers a referendum. But
well, and also I should also say this as well too. Parliament is entitled to take action. They've been given a mandate from the people to represent the people. The government has control of that. So if they did actually, meaning the government or the MPs, enact legislation relating to broadening medical cannabis legislation, or also decriminalization of cannabis, some of these points in the petition could become moot because they're dealt with, and doesn't matter which way it's done, to tell you the truth, just as long as it gets done. The idea that we've been going with as a motto is we're trying to keep it less political and more people focused, for the people, by the people. I think there's something beautiful and poetic about that, but like I say, however the job gets done, I'm grateful. So you never know, Lord works in mysterious ways.
Well, I think this is where the education of it, I mean, you referenced the 2000 case in Ontario, Canada, relative to seizures. We know from just comments, medical practitioners across different jurisdictions, and even those who may have suffered or are suffering from seizures, that there are some benefits to its use. But take us so we get to understand the perspective and continue the discussion.
Sure. Similar to the last quote that I had, and by the way, I'm really not trying to just quote the law, but sometimes when the judge says something that some might find quite remarkable that a judge would say it, I think it's important, and it's very accurate.
Adds emphasis.
So if I just made this very quickly, the Supreme Court of Bermuda in Infinity Hemp, Bermuda versus Her Majesty's Customs, and that was, that was actually the Chief Justice Hargum, Supreme Court of Bermuda, on the 14th of November 2019. It's fairly recent. And it, the Chief Justice Hargum correctly explained, and I quote, "By way of background, the cannabis plant, Cannabis sativa or Cannabis indica, contains over 80 so-called cannabinoids. The most important and most investigated cannabinoid is tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. This is the substance that is responsible for psychotropic effects of cannabis. Another important cannabinoid that occurs in large quantities in the plant is cannabidiol, that's CBD. Unlike THC, it does not possess any psychoactive action. It interacts with various receptors and evidently also reduces the psychotropic effects of THC, meaning cannabinoids like THC and CBD, they interact with cannabinoid receptors that are in the cells in the brains of our bodies, in the cells that are in our brain and in the body in certain places. Now that's important because we have an endocannabinoid system. When your endocannabinoid system is stimulated by cannabinoids and you find a homeostasis, that's where your immune system functions far better. It's better at fighting off disease, infirmity, etc. And I think we underestimate the importance of our endocannabinoid system. So it's only when for example, when a child is born, and the mother's breastfeeding, they found like natural type of, I hope I don't get this wrong, but whatever substances that are produced by the mother naturally that stimulate the endocannabinoid system of the child, and it helps with growth.
That's why breast milk is such a champion.
Correct. Yeah. But also during that growth time, I just want to say that age 25 is probably, in my own opinion, the best age range that anyone who is considering potentially using cannabis or a cannabis product to consider it at. Medically, if you need it, sometimes children can't stop having seizures or bad epilepsy, and have grand mal seizures on a daily basis. So get advice from medical doctors. Get advice from those elders or people. Your parents are usually not going to lead you wrong. But whoever you trust, I would say medical doctors, because also, although the blood circulates through one's body about every minute, the part that it goes slowest is through the brain. So, for example, I don't advocate anything that's heated at a very high level, like whether it's spliff or joint or whatever you might call it, or even a vaporizer that is too hot. The difference between combustible and vaporization, I'm not going to get into that. I'll talk about that later, but just simply to say the go low and slow and don't overdo things, Like
cooking turtle, low and slow.
Yes. That good meat, you want to cook it low and slow, but enough is as good as a feast, so you don't need to overdo things. You just need to know your body and know, sometimes, I don't know if you're a boxer or in sports, but the coaches would tell you, listen to your body when it's speaking to you with lactic acid or an injury or whatever. So it's important you start to have some self-awareness and learn triggers that could help you. Especially, I would say, for people that have issues with seizures. It's so important to understand some of the education of this could very well save their life. Anyway.
But as we look at the petition, certainly, you appreciate you trying to help us to understand the legal aspects, the impetus for it, and then the constitutional ramifications, if any. But people sometimes are affected by what touches and concerns them directly. There are those, and perhaps the media, perhaps the politics of the generations may have played a role in at least conveying this very negative, destructive view of it. But yet alcohol is ubiquitous. I mean, even in churches we use it sometimes for communion in some form or other. Just to, it depends. So with this, take us through, help us to get the perspective that you want us to understand.
Sure. Also, if I could, I think one thing that would be beneficial at some point is actually just to read something that the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in Ras Sankofi versus Maccabee versus the Commissioner of Police. At some point, I want to read this because
go ahead, man.
Sometimes you just can't say it better than they say it themselves, and it's actually quoting the CARICOM Marijuana Commission's.
Well, share with us. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So this is
I think this really sums up a lot of what we're getting at. It's a bit of Not too much, but at the same time...
Share some of it.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So Judge Vento stated in commenting that...
and this is from May 2019?
This
is Maccabee in the commercial.
Yes.
So about 2 years ago.
This is 2019. Right. I think it's on September 18th.
Okay.
No, that's when it was started. Anyway, forgive me. It is sometime in 2019.
Yeah.
So, quote, the commission, and by the way, they're quoting the CARICOM marijuana report, which is entitled The Way Forward, right? It's very important. The commission believes that the end goal for the CARICOM should be the dismantling of prohibition in its totality, to be replaced by a strictly regulated framework akin to that for alcohol and tobacco, which are harmful substances that are not criminalized. However, it acknowledges that the law reform can take many forms and should conform to national realities. This is particularly because the Commission is of the view that law reform should not adopt a laissez-faire, liberalized approach, but proceed with a responsible, controlled regime that will depend on focused and adequate resources to achieve the desired objectives. The Commission is unanimous in its view that the current classification of cannabis as quote-unquote a dangerous drug with no value or narcotic should be changed as a classification of cannabis as a controlled substance. Now the UN has changed their schedule, so I'll come back to that as well, because that's important. Just to finish up here, make it quick. The Commission is unanimous in its view that children and young persons must be protected from possible adverse effects of cannabis. Consequently, prohibition for children and young persons within the appropriate age limit should be maintained except for medical reasons. However, young people who use marijuana should be directed to treatment and diversion programs rather than be prosecuted or criminalized. I think that's so important. The Commission is unanimous that drug driving laws and mechanisms should be put in place to prevent persons from driving under the influence. These are futuristic, and mechanisms would need to be developed to enable this objective. The law must also ensure unhindered access to cannabis for scientific and medical research by approved institutions and researchers. Given the clear scientific support for medical cannabis, its use for medical purposes should be legalized. Come back to that. This should occur within special regulatory conditions for the use of marijuana for commercial medicinal purposes, despite the fact that other nutraceutical products are not regulated. The provision of public health facilities for users in need of it, and well-supervised supply, marketing, branding, packaging arrangements, etc. 2 more paragraphs, and I'm not going to read anything more like that, but just bear with me because I can't say it better myself than they did. The Commission recommends that cannabis smoking and other uses should be banned in all public places, whether in a decriminalized or legalized regime. CARICOM could consider the establishment of designated or contained public spaces for this purpose, as occurs in the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. However, this was not considered a priority for the Commission. The exception of the ban on public use should be for Rastafarians who should be able to practice their faith. Last paragraph is this. The Commission is of the view that possession and use in private households and for personal use should only be decriminalized. In doing so, it concurs with many law enforcement personnel who believe that effectively enforcing prohibitionist laws in private households is near impossible. It is an opinion reinforced by recent judicial precedents on the rights to health, as demonstrated by upholding of the freedom to grow and use cannabis for personal medical use, and on the right to privacy. Given these precedents, limited home growing for a small number of plants should be permitted. A number of legislated models permitting home growing already exist in Uruguay, Colorado, Washington, D.C., and in the Caribbean, Jamaica, and Antigua and Barbuda. That's the longest thing I'm going to read today, but I thought that it covers quite a bit of the focus that I think is kind of brought together all in one.
And it shows precedents that already exist in the region. So when we come back from this break, Ori, let's continue so that people understand what is it that you're trying to achieve and that it's not without precedent.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you
Stay
so
tuned
much.
for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
As with much of history, historical facts tend to be passed along via the older folks and stories. One of the fullest early accounts of the settlement of Cayman Brac was given by H.W. Rutty, J.P., in 1908, which was gathered from the oldest residents. The first settlements were made in 1833, when 3 families bearing the names Rich, Foster, and Scott from Grand Cayman went to the Brac. Although others came from Grand Cayman and Jamaica, the present population in 1908 was composed of descendants of those 3 first families. Of the traditional founding families, the Fosters and Ryans have the fullest genealogical and oral records.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
Some believe cancer doesn't happen to people who are young, healthy, and happy, but it does.
The Lions Club of Tropical Gardens invite the community to join the Brenda Tibbetts Lund Memorial Virtual Walk Run, October 29th to 31st, in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Walk any day between October 29th to the 31st.
Walk alone, run with a team, or participate with your family. Registration is only $25 at eventpro.ky or the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens Pink Shop on Shedden Road, located across from the Mango Tree Restaurant parking lot. Registration includes a t-shirt or tank top and raffle entry. Funds raised will help to support mammogram screenings. Post your walk-run photos to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Hashtag BTL Walk Run. Hashtag LCTG Breast Cancer Awareness. Email photos to bcawareness@gmail.com. The Lions Club of Tropical Gardens Brenda Tibbetts Lund Memorial Virtual Walk Run, October 29th to the 31st.
Just never give up.
Are you planning a social, an office party, or event over the holiday season? Make the most of your holiday party and leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway Box to Go, with the option of a 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. Cater your holiday parties with Subway. Visit subway.ky for menu options. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, Ora Marina Fourth is our guest, and we're talking about a petition to. Now, I will continue to say this until we get it right. Decriminalize, as opposed to what maybe some would say legalize, but it is to decriminalize the private use of cannabis, right, for consenting adults in private. So the private use
for personal use. But it's very important. No, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
But it's very important that children are protected.
Right. So as adults,
yes,
private use.
Correct. And we're not encouraging people to just use it because it can be used. The idea is to not penalize something criminally that's not inherently criminal. So, for example, somebody give me an example of someone just drinking cannabis tea to ensure that their nausea or
right,
some aid that they get therapeutically or self-medicating, so to speak, or even rubbing a topical on one's skin. That's not inherently criminal, but it can help a lot. People with arthritis without a prescription, so sorry.
We're hearing from people in this jurisdiction, even the wearing of T-shirts depicting a particular leaf. Certain products in supermarkets.
Yeah,
and the like.
there's prohibited and restricted goods, and then there's some other things that I'd rather not.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, if this, in this petition, just maybe we could ask you to recap quickly.
Sure.
What is it calling for, and what would be the consequence should the Parliament take it up with or without a referendum, but tell us what it's calling for.
Sure. Well, I think some of the main things, I actually have to say that I certainly agree that the Honourable Premier, I believe it was on the 15th of July of this year, alluded to that dealt with rooting out social injustice and also ensuring that issues relating to discrimination against young people, amongst other things, but in employment and in business or the workplace, do not continue. Such as, for example, if a young person, which asks anyone, but a young person is criminally penalized and or charged with possession for personal use of one cannabis joint or spliff or whatever you want to call it, maybe even use of pharmaceutical grade vaporizable cannabinoids without a prescription. I'm going to just keep that phrase at that. It can have long-lasting, not just legal harsh consequences, but social consequences as well. Right. So we're seeking to allow people to do things in private that where they're not a hurt to society or then necessarily themselves.
You referenced
or children.
Exactly.
Yes,
something
sir.
Just now, and even the Honourable Premier back in July alluded to this social injustice.
And I commend him for
we see seizures, for instance. We also see epilepsy in particular. We see reports from medical practitioners that said patients undergoing chemotherapy, the use can help them at the very least with some pain management, but also appetite. A person being able to access that, even if there were no medicinal benefits, seemingly that there are significant ones, but even in their mind, it helps. That itself could give a person back to the WHO sort of definition of health.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we want to ask you more about that, but we want to take this call first, and we'll ask about the petition. We're speaking to Ora Marina Fourth. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, caller.
I was just wondering if you could repeat who the panel was, but I think I heard who it was. But I just wanted to ask, because this would definitely affect, I would want this to positively affect me because my religion is Rasta, and I can't live my liberty out because of the laws in place. But my question is, can you repeat what the petition is trying to gain?
Right, and where to get it, yeah.
Because if it were something like decriminalize it, I particularly would want to grow it. Because just like any other plant that I plant, because I live very natural, I would want to know, is it going to affect me being able to grow it as well? Not just decriminalize it, because I don't like...
You're sourcing of it, quality control, right?
Yeah.
Organic, yeah.
So I would just, for me, I have had to stop its use altogether because of the laws in Cayman. But I just want them to repeat what they're trying to gain for somebody like myself.
Thank you.
Who would want to grow it, know where it's come from, know the seed, how it was grown, and not just...
the quality control.
Exactly. So would that be in place as well?
Okay.
Thank you so much for your question, caller. And that's also very topical and insightful. So I'd like to answer it in two parts. The quality control, but if I could just quote section 105. Once again, this is not long, but it's what she was talking about. So this is the Ras Maccabee versus Commissioner of Police. I couldn't say it better than how they say it. Section 105, Judge Vento says, and this is the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in 2019, says the effects of the declarations made below are twofold. First, they allow use of possession and cultivation of any amount of cannabis by an adult member in the Rastafari religion for use in the Rastafari religion. Secondly, they allow the use, possession, and cultivation of cannabis by an adult in a private place of any amount of cannabis for his or her personal use in private. The National Assembly, they're talking about Parliament when they mean that, but this is pertaining to St. Kitts and Nevis, has the power to legislate in respect of these matters consistent with this judgment. In addition, I emphasize there can be no doubt that the National Assembly, or as I would say, replace it, Parliament, also has the power to and must determine through legislation the amount of cannabis permitted in respect of the orders made in paragraphs 4 to 7 below. So that 2019 Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court built upon the 2018 Constitutional Court of South Africa. South Africa was based on privacy rights. It showed how freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, discrimination, all these different things didn't work for the Rastafari to allow them to use cannabis as a religious sacrament. But as soon as they made the argument in private by adults, in the core case of that being private premises at their home, that core case, they extended it a bit, and they could explain, but that has shown, a landmark judgment that has dealt with the Rastafari use of cannabis as a religious sacrament. No, I would not be able to get the benefit of that. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking,
right. So
based on my spiritual
caller,
but.
Okay, while the call is there,
privacy applies to everyone.
Right. So while the call is there, if I can enact specific, she was wondering about quality the petition. Control. Yeah, but before we get to the petition, is the petition asking, in addition to personal use, in private, is it also allowing and calling for growing for such?
Correct. It's calling for decriminalization for personal use by adults. But here's the three things: catchphrases, possession, consumption, and cultivation.
So you can, okay. So does that help?
And is there a way that I can contact you so that I can help you get this pushed forward?
That's very kind of you, ma'am. Certainly, I will be providing contact information.
Okay.
I can give you. I don't mind doing this right now.
And the petition is...
My phone number is 916-4947.
Okay.
Myself and also Mr. Panton and others may be actually getting other phone numbers hooked up in order to just streamline calls to do with this. Yeah, but for now I'm happy to do that.
And where's the petition for those who want to sign?
Sure. Currently, it is at all of Mr. Panton.
The Reflections
stores.
outlets?
Yeah, so Reflections, Liquor for Less, and hemp and tobacco stores, all 8 locations in totality. It's also, so anyone can sign. By the way, if anyone wants to sign it and you are the first signature and you would like that page to be put privately so that no one else can see it, because there's places for more than one one person to sign, please ask them to do that and they will remove it. And we're continually trying to ensure that we update and sharpen our
sort of data protection
confidentiality, data protection, everything that we can to protect the people.
And the comments are...
Yeah, so quality control, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
One thing that's not happening right now in the, let's call it the informal economy, so to speak, whether it be a gifted or whatever, supplying is supplying, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be apparently seeming very high quality cannabis, and one might even know or believe they know what strain it is and so forth, but there's nothing that can beat having it lab tested. So I'm talking for microbials, toxins, poisons, heavy metals, cannabinoid content, terpene profile. Terpene profile is so important. I alluded to terpene profiles last time where I said it, to make it long story short, it's probably the best way to describe it is what provides smell and taste, so to speak. However, the terpene profile is extremely important for the therapeutic applications of it. And for example, someone like Dr. Lockhart or other medical professionals would be able to really dig in from a medical doctor's perspective and let people know that cannabis is one of the most temperamental plants on earth, independent how it's manipulated. I mean, in a good way, not a bad way. Has a lot of good and in fact, some strains are, for example, like CBD dominant, where it's the exact opposite of something that might get people quite high or experience psychoactive or psychotropic effects. So just want to say that it's by being able to test it and know what is in it, we're all able to, at that point, whether it be decriminalized to the extent that you could get it tested, or whether it be locally where we can do customized formulas for patients, the benefits are boundless when it comes to allowing domestic cultivation and cannabinoid extraction, as well as research and development and export to other jurisdictions.
Right. Any other comments, caller?
That sounds like a great line of new jobs for Caymanians, scientists, research. We can be like another Israel.
Correct. Well, I would take it as far as to say that, yes, I would agree with you, but we could be another Jamaica, and I think that the Cayman Islands and Jamaica already are working together hand in hand, and we have a history. I mean, I'm not going to elaborate, but the Cayman Islands was annexed and governed by Jamaica from...
Not really, no.
No, and no, as if it was annexed from 1863 to 1959.
We can argue about that. Call any as you want to.
All right.
Thank you very much. We had self-autonomy, but I was saying that it's important that we work together. Thank you so much, caller.
All right. The cooperation is there. I mean, there's no independence as interdependence, but we have to make misstatements. Well, we'll argue about it later. Let's go to this caller, though. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, dear.
Hey.
Hello, good afternoon.
What's up, man? How are you today?
Okay, good afternoon to you, guest too.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you too, caller.
Okay. We're talking about human rights.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right now the laws because of human rights, homosexual acts are allowed once it's indoors. Okay? So, if a police officer comes to my house now and finds me smoking a spliff in my yard, he's able to take me and carry me and lock me up. But if he goes to somebody's house and there's homosexual acts going on, he can't do him a thing because of human rights. Okay? But in the eyes of God, homosexual acts are 1,000 million times worse than a person smoking a spliff of weed.
So,
thank you very much.
Before you go, what do you think would happen if the police came and found homosexuals engaged in an act while smoking? Just a thought. All right. Not to be facetious. What are you thinking? Yeah.
I'm thinking you would have to isolate.
No, answer that question.
The two subjects.
Yeah. What I'm looking at is, as the caller before the last reference, in terms of quality control, in terms of religious practices, and recognizing that our Constitution provides for the practice of recognizing established religions. I think maybe when the Constitution was being discussed, maybe many thought it was only Christianity, without recognizing that it's only one of the world religions, right? So any recognized established religion can be practiced here under a Constitution. Is that the case?
I'm going to choose my words very carefully, but I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability right now. You understand that these are not absolute rights, so they're qualified rights. So, for example, if you were to take an extreme version, that might be the best idea, where maybe there's blood sacrifices and kind of injury to people and so forth. You don't just have complete freedom.
But established,
so that was. I actually want to say this. So in the in South Africa, actually, what happened? This is probably the best way I can put it. The gentleman was that kickstarted. The name comes up, Mr. Prince. He was a South African citizen, and he qualified as a lawyer. Well, did all his legal qualifications, but wasn't admitted by the Bar Council or Law Society. So this is how that kick started in 2002, because he said he was allowed to practice as a Rastafarian, devout Rastafarian, spiritual beliefs were allowed to be practiced, and he wasn't budging. The difference from 2002 that in 2017 triggered everything different, from because we're very used to hearing the Rastafari, at least in the Caribbean, I guess, angle or pitch that it should be allowed. However, when you take privacy rights of adults and couple that together with it, that's where it really gains its strength. So the best thing they could have ever done is argued privacy rights and kept it away from religion. And I'll tell you why. Because to go too far down the road of allowing a religion rights over and above other ones starts to put a hierarchy on different aspects relating to people's spirituality. And I believe the courts would be far more comfortable dealing with aspects if you deal with it in, say, privacy rights or a different form, or maybe coupled together rather than on their own, because that's what's made all the difference in the world is privacy rights. I want to keep focusing on that and not stopping.
Exactly. And then this is where I think, as you referenced, the case law across the Commonwealth in particular.
Yes, sir.
And in our Constitution. Let's pause though and keep Ms. Susan somewhat happy. Well, Dean is there, so that might work. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years,
so much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
People, it is hard to see. They burn out for money and the gallows for me.
Let's celebrate the culture and traditions of the Cayman Islands in music and song. The National Cultural Foundation invites you to Memories of Yesteryears, featuring the Cayman Islands folk singers as you've never seen them before, with special guest artist Peniel Miller and more. Performances on October 29th, 30th, and 31st at the Hartwell Theatre, and November 6th in Cayman Brac. Tickets are $15 per person. Call or visit the CNCF office or artscayman.org for more information.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045. Radio Cayman's Business Buzz. Each Tuesday and Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of the Business Buzz is brought to you by Optical Outlook. Visit them at their new location in Anderson Square. Telephone 746-2020. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
If you think you might be infected with COVID-19, take these steps to help prevent other people from getting sick. Stay home except to seek medical care. Call your doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a mask. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Schedule a COVID-19 test by visiting hsa.ky. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Did you know our reefs are home to over 45 different kinds of corals and more than 125 different species of fish? Cayman's amazing coral ecosystems provide so many benefits to our lives. Come celebrate Cayman's corals at Coral Fest, November 6th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Grand Caymanian, former Holiday Inn in Safe Haven. Entry is free. Come meet Cayman's coral scientists and learn why corals are so important to us. There will also be tons of Coral Kid fun and awesome prizes. Email coral@gov.ky or visit doe.ky for more info.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks to our listeners. And we do recognize that this is a topic for some immediately they'll tune out, for others they'll be inflamed by it, and for some they'll be intrigued and exhibit a sense of curiosity. Mr. Ora Marion IV joins us, and I like your respectful, responsible approach thus far in trying to bring the discussion forward. Present it in a way that the parliamentarians can have something to work with. The draft legislation, as you put forward, the whole outline of case law across the Commonwealth, as it were. But maybe let me ask, if I could revisit a couple of callers earlier. The lady who was saying, well, quality control, in a sense. I'm just paraphrasing, but from, I think, people in law enforcement and the judicial and legal profession, all encompassing, have expressed concern through media reports of the safety, as it were, of shipments coming across. Sometimes things like formaldehyde, different dangerous substances being included for whatever reasons. And I honestly don't know. I'm not repeating anything verbatim. I'm only standing on the periphery sometimes of conversations, other than what potentially could be the ill consequence of using something. The fact that it's now tainted, perhaps combined or somehow deliberate otherwise, ingesting these other substances unknowingly could have on the negative consequences on people. So in the petition, it's asking for cultivation for personal use as well.
Well, yeah, that's in relation to, it's actually cultivation in two different forms. The decriminalization for personal uses by adults in private, not children. And when we say private, we're not talking public. That relates to, in the core form of being private premises, so we'll just stick to that, meaning your house or your residential address. That's the core function where consumption, possession, and cultivation are all fundamental human rights that are supported by privacy rights and others, but I'm going to focus on that because it's the strongest and it gives the best form. And as a matter of fact, cultivation for medical purposes could allow someone, by the way, exclusively to Caymanian owned and controlled businesses, to obtain license to make a commercial profit. So you could get a license. You would have to establish a cannabis licensing authority, similar to what Jamaica has done. Jamaica really did a great job, except one thing, and I won't highlight what that is. But
you mean the control of the whole industry by economics? And that's what we went to.
I think it should be 100% exclusively Caymanian owned and controlled businesses, with no disrespect to anyone else. And by the way, there's a constitutional justification for that.
Right.
Could I just highlight what that is really quickly?
Yeah.
Section 16, subsection 4, specifically sub B. It says subsection 1 shall not apply to any law so far as that law makes provision. And then B, that's 4B. With respect to entry into or exclusion from or employment, engaging in any business or profession, movement or residence within the Cayman Islands of persons who are not Caymanians. In a nutshell, that allows discrimination in favor of Caymanians over and above
protection of the economic benefits, right?
Yeah, well, it's not intended to be something negative. I mean, every country protects. There's certain protections that citizens of a country have over and above other non-citizens.
Without knowing definitive.
But we do our best.
We understand.
Be integrationist.
As you referenced the Jamaican context, we understand from many there that what potential could have been a lucrative sector for government and for employment and for entrepreneurship is now perhaps being denied to many of the sector because of the foreign ownership and influence.
Yes and no. So that is an issue. And by the way, this is not me saying it. We're alluding to what out of Jamaica has been expressly part of the case. I know more than I choose to go into, and because I might actually ask stakeholders in Jamaica to help assist, perhaps if we can do a Zoom call at some time for educating the public as to those aspects. But that's why I mentioned the Caymanian participation being important for the profit-earning relation. There was something that the previous caller, the lady, said, and I want to just say this, that perhaps if I didn't say it, the medical aspect of it, where Caymanians could be able to commercially participate and offer in profit-earning functions to be licensed for the medical therapeutic and scientific purposes uses, that function. That's something that, you know, we have the banking sector, the financial services, and this, that, and other, tourism. We've seen the challenges that COVID has brought upon us, but even before that, you know, I think that there's been signs that we really need to look at another economic pillar of sustainability. And I think that the medical cannabis industry and also the scientific applications for research and development allow that.
Whereas we're talking about medical use of prior use of cannabis, a couple of comments, and we want to share one in relation to alcohol versus marijuana. But hemp, we know hemp products for
Delta
centuries,
8,
and from construction to using in the textile industry, to food and the like. Would it now, from a agriculture perspective, just the growing of hemp now, is hemp a hemp plant and a ganja plant, to use colloquial term, one and the same?
And I like colloquial metaphors. So.
Makes two of us. So somebody who has, how would that play in? Maybe we can talk about that after the break as well, and to what extent this, because we're looking at construction materials, right? We're looking at food,
so
even fuel.
Yeah. One thing I want to just say is, because my analysis has been from what I can garner from lawfully authorized jurisdictions and literally traveling around the world and touring things and making, you know, just going and introducing yourself to people. It's been a lot more than might even meet the eye. There are some problems with hemp. So, for example, hemp is good for rejuvenating the ground, where you have like some thing to naturally like get it back in place, and it grows quite well. But also, if people are doing cannabis Delta 9 versus hemp is Delta 8, if we're being specific, hemp cross-fertilizing cannabis strains that have been crossbreeded and stabilized and have significant value in the market, if they're cross-fertilized by hemp, that has been an issue in some places.
So two separate things, but still.
But those can be contained also depending upon where you grow them, because there's indoor, out there. So there's different things.
All right, we have a WhatsApp we want to share about alcohol when we come back from the break.
Yeah, sure.
All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Owners and operators of local educational centres are being urged to register with the Education Council. Ministry of Education Chief Officer Sutonya Cacho says the registration of educational institutions enables the ministry to recognize those in adherence to the national education standards, thus ensuring that the nation's children have access to quality education. Turning to international news now, at least 5 former Trump administration staffers have voluntarily spoken with the House committee investigating the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol, CNN has learned. Those discussions come as lawyers working for the committee have also reached out to a range of other Trump aides to inquire whether they would be interested in speaking with the committee voluntarily without the threat of a subpoena. The engagement could provide insight for the committee that's seeking to learn more about the actions of former U.S. President Donald Trump and his supporters in the lead-up to the riot. Washington has revoked the U.S. license of one of China's biggest telecoms companies, citing national security concerns. China Telecom must stop providing services in America within 60 days. Officials said the Chinese government's control of the company gave it the opportunity to access, store, disrupt, and/or misroute U.S. communications. This, in turn, could allow it to engage in espionage and other harmful activities against the U.S., they said. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us in the studio or Mary the 4th. And we're talking about a petition to decriminalize the personal use in private for adults of cannabis now, with for medicinal purposes as well as recreational, or if that's the right word to use, to grow, cultivate, consume. Help me so I get it.
One could take that, could use that language depending upon how the function is carried out. However, I would prefer we stay away from any language of recreational and use recreational for the commercial function of when you can do anything with it without,
So now we're looking at private use.
Yes.
In private for personal and for adults.
Yep.
Okay. We had an exchange with one of our listeners.
Sure.
And please ask if you could ask this question. So in the case of non-criminalization for marijuana use, what happens if someone consumes, say at night, and then the next day the person is mentally or physically impaired at work? If that person has an accident or causes injury or serious loss, and if a connection can be found to the recent marijuana in the blood, who will be liable for compensation for this? Now, just other clarity and other respect for you and for our listeners and for the individual sending the message, I then asked, well, what would be the case if it was alcohol? Now, we know alcohol is used heavily. Some of us will go for lunch and have a small thing. Some of us would probably have on a desk with a coffee. I don't know, right? The person was very kind and gracious enough to respond and say that I think that the insurance coverage and possibly most employment contracts and staff handbooks would address alcohol use. But alcohol influence is easier to detect than marijuana, and alcohol use, rightly or wrongly, is not illegal in this country. Now, I didn't ask the question of the caller to be facetious or argumentative or anything, but recognizing that
I think it's actually quite an amazing comment with some good insight. So
okay, so I mean, someone comes to work with a hangover.
Yeah.
We probably find some sort of concoction for them. We probably dismiss it. It could be, the person has been there for the longest time. It could be the top dog in the organization. Whatever the reason is, right? We go to entertain clients after work or lunchtime. Some of us will not have a drink because it's work related. Some of us will because, well, just because. Like the message reads, it's legal to consume that in this country, and provided you don't get behind the wheel of a vehicle and drive under the influence, then you're okay, seemingly. But in that instance, prescription drugs, the seemingly use of an illegal drug like marijuana, to the caller, to the question posed by the WhatsApp, I mean, what would happen?
Well, there certainly does need to be a margin of appreciation for employers to identify work conditions and certain things that they demand of their employees. So I would say that unless somebody is prescribed and is using it as responsibly medically as prescribed by a medical doctor, there should be no use at work. There should be enough responsibility the same way that you should the same way that you shouldn't be drinking at alcohol at work, or maybe perhaps a party or work party is different, but no, that pretty much the same way with alcohol. It's something in personal time, not at work. And also I want to say this as well too, a lot of people don't all necessarily realize sometimes, but I think this is important. You mentioned about CBD and all the importance.
Right.
You can use THC, which is psychoactive.
So I make it high?
Correct.
Just,
correct.
For Ray-Bank and myself, so we know what we're talking about.
No. Absolutely. That would get you high, right?
Right, okay.
You can use CBD, can be used to reduce the psychoactive effects or the high effects of THC. Now, swallowing something orally, like that administration route takes longer because it has to go through the liver.
Mm-hmm.
If it's pharmaceutical vaporizable cannabinoids, like a vape that the doctors express, like they have,
or even topicals, maybe.
Well, no, a topical would be applied to the skin.
Right.
That's even less of an issue if somebody's high, because I just would take care of like kind of pain and stuff. I'd let doctors talk about it. But just simply to say, if someone, let's say, vaped, got high with more THC based or whatever, there's terpene profiles, but especially CBD that could also be vaped after to decrease the psychoactive or the effects or the high effect.
Right.
So you could get yourself high, stimulate your endocannabinoid system, but use CBD as a way of getting rid of the being high where you can't focus and so forth. Because I understand people could freak out.
Well, we've interviewed physicians, generally speaking, right? And we're not going to speak for the medical profession, or for
neither would I.
No. So we're not going to do that now, and we're not going to speak as if we know we're talking about medically.
And I stand to be corrected or sit or whatever.
Right. But there's THC and then there's the CBD plus the other.
I say that. I some people disagree on how many cannabinoids. I think it's an unexplored frontier, just like space or the depths of the ocean. But if we had more opportunity to do more clinical health trials and research and development, we could make a lot of far more breakthroughs. I think we're just scratching the surface of what we know.
Right.
No puns intended, because that's been used a lot. But if we were able to get more of a handle and do more testing, I think there would be far less like for example, you know what? Actually, this is good. I never thought of it like this, but some people, let's say if you're drinking alcohol, and I don't advocate that anyone break the law, or I'm not advocating anyone use drugs. Period. But if you choose to, in a responsible manner, just in the same way that someone might realize that, let's say, tequila does something different from a glass of wine or perhaps one beer.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? As an extreme example, there's cannabis as well too. That if you know what you're getting and you know it's been tested,
this is what they call the control and
quality control,
right.
and some of it has to come with knowing yourself, because we're all made up different.
Well, it's back to the drink. We've known that the National Drug Council, for instance, phenomenal effort in education and trying. And they'll say to you, that person for whom that particular drink, whatever that is, on that particular occasion may affect them one way.
Yeah.
Versus other times, did they eat? Was stress they're under? What is happening?
Different
with them
factors
at that point
that
in
really
time,
have a big play.
Right?
Yeah.
That one drink. Now we know there's units, I suppose. I wouldn't call it, the bottle, the can, or the glass, but that one drink, for person A, will be different. Possibly for person B, but let's stick to cannabis in a sense. THC and CBD. THC is the component that makes you just use it, layman's term, high. The CBD,
it's good for killing pain and everything. CBD, by the way, is and I stand to be corrected, but I stand by the statement. It's one of the most amazing natural anti-inflammatory properties that you can get. It's safe. There's some that work really good for as anti-inflammatories, but they'll destroy your stomach if you take them.
And they have some, according to physicians and published research, some negative side effects. So CBD and then THC, and then you talked about the endocannabinoid system that we have and the positive impact. So can you get through cannabis the CBD without the THC?
Yes, absolutely. So you can, you're able to, when we talk about extracts and making tinctures, but just think of the extracts where you just extract the cannabinoids out of the plant matter itself, whether it's whole plant or just the bud or flower or whatever you want to call it. When you extract that out, there's techniques where you can isolate all the different things. You can
Mhm.
isolate terpenes, you can isolate the CBD, CBG, CBN, THC.
Right.
Other
And
you get the point.
getting if
one last
Yes.
thing. I mentioned it last time too, but Prentice was alluding to THCA and CBDA.
Right.
And that's just to make it easy. The compound at the time, that's acid. That's when it's fresh, when it's
Mhm.
just cut. It's not as psychoactive when it's fresh, but when it's dried is
Mhm.
when it'll have more of high, get people high effect. So
Mhm.
I quite like the live resin extraction method
Mm.
because I don't think it provides as much psychoactive effect, but
Mm.
it does provide the endocannabinoid system with good nourishment without the high effects. So.
And we're seeing that in foods, right? Where sprouted greens, for instance, they
Mhm.
bring it into breads,
Mhm.
where people who eat
Yes,
would say to
indeed.
you, eat this thing, don't cook it, don't cook
Sprout it. You shouldn't even eat it without sprouting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Different things. So we
Yeah.
start to understand
Almonds and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
More and more with food choices and the healthier consumption of foods.
Yes.
And why I appreciate why I was asking is simply that this comes down to the education. And for some of us, we're going to perhaps object to something simply because it's like the story with the lady who
And
always...
we're all entitled to our own opinions, even
Mhm.
agreeing to disagree. That's quite all right. We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
do it
Yeah.
so respectfully and constructively, and I think we'd,
Mhm. Yep.
that's all we do is our part.
So with this now, and in the Cayman context,
Mhm.
what obtains, from what we understand, we have legislation that should a person have a prescription from a medical provider, sourcing it from the proper licensed regulated pharmacy and the like, that person can use this thing as prescribed.
Yes. So one thing, by the way, just so that I'm clear, and I don't want to identify
Yeah.
what it was. There's no rules or regulations yet right now. We do have some good interpretation from the landmark judgment by the Honorable Justice Macmillan.
In
Grand
the
Court.
Docs Express case, though?
Yes.
Okay.
That vaporizable pharmaceutical grade cannabinoids,
Mhm.
vaporizable cannabinoids
Mhm.
are lawfully authorized in the Cayman Islands.
Right.
So you can have your vape oil and use them in that capacity. You can't have the plant matter and roll up a spliff lawfully authorized yet.
Yeah, that's still illegal.
Correct.
Right.
I think there should be a. Let me get down the track that I don't want to.
Yeah, but we know that the HSA has created a new dispensary in its specialty clinic.
Well,
looking at.
Yes. So health clinics, but more particularly, I think is the most accurate is medical doctors prescribe.
Mhm.
For choice of better words, pharmacies and pharmacists, either retail pharmacies, pharmacists, they dispense.
Right.
We get into mixing and compounding perhaps some other time as well. It's
Fair
because
enough.
that's important.
That which is important, and this is where you were
needs to
talking
be.
about being able to test, being able to understand the profile, being able to understand the impact. And I gather from medical practitioners that, like titration with any drug, they will administer it. The doctor is asked for certain things, maybe pain management,
Yes,
and the like. This is
Yes.
it. When we come back from this final break, we want to revisit the call for the petition.
Sure.
Perhaps the impetus for it, the consequences of maybe having it done in such a way that takes away that negative impact for those individuals for whom they may have been incarcerated, now have a police record and like
expungement and so forth.
Right. So we can talk about. Aura Marion IV is our guest. When we come back, we'll conclude the discussion. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaner.
From now on until October 30th, take advantage of our 12% discount on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays on all ladies and gents wearing apparels on orders $18 and up, except on wedding dresses and evening gowns, which will remain at the standard price at 10% off prepay. Offer valid at all 3 locations: Savannah Countryside, 946-1884, Elgin Avenue, 949-2452, and Eastern Avenue drive-through, rain or shine, 949-7104. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you know you look good.
The Department of Commerce and Investment is asking clients to use their online services at www.dci.gov.ky for trade and business amendments, grant and renewal applications, and more. While the DCI counters remain open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can stay safe, avoid the line, and save time by applying online for business services at dci.gov.ky. For questions about the DCI's online service or other licensing, enforcement, or regulatory matters, please email info@dci.gov.ky.
Help your children stay safe by teaching them to make safe choices every day. Marijuana can be harmful to a child's growing brain. It is important to have a conversation with your child from a young age about what marijuana is and how it can be harmful to their developing brain. For tips, log on to www.ndc.ky. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
What do you do if you have to go to a shelter? To help you safely prepare, evacuate, and shelter while protecting yourself and others from COVID-19 this hurricane season, here's some tips from the Public Health Department. If you must go to a shelter, be ready to protect yourself and others. Practice social distancing of at least 6 feet from others. Follow public health's preventative actions. Wash your hands with soap and water, often if possible, or use hand sanitizer, cover coughs and sneezes, and wear mask or cloth face coverings. Get your COVID-19 vaccine when eligible. Avoid sharing food and drink with anyone. For more guidance to update your emergency hurricane plans due to coronavirus, visit www.caymanprepared.gov.ky. This message is brought to you by the Public Health Department in partnership with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
For the record. For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. In the studio, we have Aura Marion at the fourth, and we're talking about a subject that perhaps for some they're confused by it, conflicted. Some is because it's emotive. For others, they've seen the impact over the generations. But Mr. Marion, to you and to the others, including many in this jurisdiction, but others who have said it's time to revisit this topic to do it properly, so that we look at the medicinal, but we also look at the responsible use of it in private.
Correct.
Anything in our democracy that sort of champions and promotes our democracy is something that we should look at. So,
or as you say, a healthy democracy where we can have these type of discussions in a respectful and constructive and mature manner.
And thank you for helping us to be able to do that, and for having the courage to come forward. Now, just in case someone is joining us now, or they are perhaps listening for a bit and quite say, what are we talking about again? So there's a call for this. There's a petition on hand.
There is.
Tell us quickly, if you wouldn't mind repeating it once again. What is the petition about? Where people can at least look at it to understand more clearly if they want on their own time.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dwayne. I appreciate that. In a nutshell, the petition ultimately calls for things that are twofold. One, decriminalization of cannabis for personal use by adults in private.
Mm-hmm.
And with that we mean consumption, possession, and cultivation on private premises.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if somebody put it in their pocket. If you're on your private premises, say you put it in your pocket, you're not smoking it, and you come out of your yard, technically having it in your pocket, there should be some level of allowance to getting somewhere reasonably.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's also for lawmakers in principle. But the second thing is for establishment of a medical cannabis licensing authority. And by that, what we mean is expanding on currently in existence medical cannabis legislation that's already here, but it's very narrow. And we'd like to broaden it to allow profit earning opportunities for Caymanian owned and controlled businesses. But not only that, I think the more important aspect too is as it currently stands for the medical cannabis aspect, only cannabis extracts and tinctures of cannabis can be imported only from other jurisdictions, and it sends you on a scouring world hunt, and especially with COVID, with supply issues and so forth, and also the risk of spreading infection and so forth. Being self-sufficient is very important from
food
supply.
security even.
Yeah,
right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And you know, it's proven that it's not, use of cannabis is not criminogenic in and of itself, meaning that it doesn't spur on criminal activity. What you'll find is actually the criminalization of it provides a breeding ground for things like turf wars, and you know, if it comes in by a boat from a neighboring jurisdiction, for example, bringing in guns, explosives, hard drugs, other things that even people with COVID are dangerous animals that might even be prohibited, and you know, whether intentionally or not. I think a raccoon was loose somewhere out by Republic's.
We saw issues of roosters fighting, organized rooster fights,
you're right.
different things. Yeah. So getting rid of that criminal aspect of it is what you're sharing. All right.
Yes, correct. And by making it something that Caymanians can do, I think some Caymanians right now, and all people, I want to say, but from a aspect that gives them an opportunity, I think we should really look at expunging records, and it's important that we show mercy. If you never show mercy, you really can't expect it for mercy to be shown to you. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I just want to remind everyone as well too, and I just want to say this, that you know, we're all different, but when we build on our differences, especially the strengths that fill in, like you have strengths that fill in weaknesses that I have, without a doubt. I say that. But when we come together and we use them to build upon things, you'll find that the best person you can be in this world is yourself. But try to be the best version of yourself. I mean, I even have a list of, I fail every day and all this, and sure, glory to God, I have a list of people and things I need to apologize for and so forth. I intend to get to it. But meaning we all can only do our individual parts. This is something that I think it's important for me to step up, and I like I say, it's something that when you get into unraveling the Gordian knot, you actually come to find out that this is far more simple, or simplicity at its finest. But you can't try to get to some places too easy. You have to take the time, unravel the Gordian knot. You can't drop it with force of Alexander. You get
Be the best you can be. Right?
Yes, indeed. Encourage one another to do our best as well. So that's all we can do. So.
Right. Well, I recognize that this sometimes is an involved discussion. It certainly causes us to at least want to appreciate more through education and the like. For those who are interested in having a look at the petition to see what it calls for, where again is it available?
Oh yes, this is very important. Thank you very much, Dwayne. So it is available, as mentioned, at all Liquor for Less, Reflections, and hemp and tobacco stores. It's also for, and I'm just reading verbatim here, patients with an appointment at Behavioral Health Associates Cayman, that's BHAC, can sign the petition during their visit, but only patients with appointments, please. That's Dr. Lockhart's health clinic. But like I said, just patients with appointments, please. That's the authorized ability. My number is 916-4947. I'll repeat that, 916-4947. And right now, if you want to reach us by email, that's at ccreform345@gmail. So I'm going to spell it right now. That's ccreform345@gmail.com. Social media platforms, I hope I'm saying this right, are going to be up in due course, and also we'll have the petition ultimately online so that people can make could sign it and view the information online. But we want to make sure that more than anything, we're not launching anything on if it's going to risk personal data or confidentiality issues and privacy. So anyone that gets in contact with us, we're quite happy to discuss whatever we can. Responsibility needs to be done with this. So something we try to answer everything, but some things I've had to say. I'm not saying anymore. I don't want to give people ideas.
Well, no, I appreciate it. And maybe this will be a continuing discussion.
I would love to do so, Dwayne. Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say thank you. Not only are and I'm not lying, you're a scholar and a gentleman, sir, and I really appreciate it. It's been important for me to tell people how much I appreciate them. So you're somebody I just want to say love you, respect you, admire you, and appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, man.
And
thank you.
As always, thank you. Like I say, you're a true schoher and a gentleman and a Caymanian patriot.
Well, I appreciate
I said it. You didn't have to self-praise of no worse, so I make sure that I said it.
Well, maybe we don't, celebrate each other enough. So thank you for that. I receive it.
And thank you for being you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And to you, Prentice, and the other champions for that, for Dr. Lockhart, for sharing his insight and his intellect.
And there's others that I'd like to thank, but I just, especially in Cayman, I want to be careful. Some people are like, Ori, I appreciate you saying it privately, but don't tell anyone that I'm helping. I'm like, no problem, that's okay.
That's cool, man, that's cool. We'll get there. We'll have this discussion, and for those of you who have a competing or contrary view, certainly voice that to us from time to time. That makes our democracy that much healthier.
Indeed.
Thanks to Miss Susan, she was like, he's gone a week, boy. Not long enough. And thanks to OC for letting me at least be able to be off for a bit. So those of you, invite you tomorrow to come back for more Talk Today. But start your day, join me start in the morning for the record, come back for Talk Today right after the midday news. And to my good friend, well, what I say, might be a glutton for punishment. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.